Shotgun Part 1. My name is Ruth Mae Parker, and I'm 68. On a Thursday afternoon, my son Dylan stood in my kitchen with a foam cup and a casual grin and said, "Starting next paycheck, we'll route your deposit to my account. I'll handle everything." I nodded once, like he'd asked me to pass the salt. "All right," I said. He kissed my forehead, quick, ceremonial, and left. I slid the deadbolt, pulled a yellow pad from the drawer, and wrote a list with boxes I intended to check. Friday, 6:02 p.m., the door clicked open with their key. "Dinner," Kelsey called, sing-song bright. Then her voice cracked into a raw scream. The living room was a clean outline of where my life had sat. Tan rectangles on the wall where the TV had hung, dust silhouettes where the sofa and console had been. The china cabinet was gone. So were the rugs. I was in the kitchen on a folding chair, a kettle just beginning to murmur. Dylan lunged in first, red rising from collar to ears. "Mom, where is everything?" "Sold," I said. "If you're running my money, I want cash in hand." Kelsey's mouth curled. "Selfish." I poured water over a tea bag and slipped a tiny recorder into my apron pocket. It had been on since I heard their car. Monday, 8:10 a.m., I was at Pine Shore Bank with a polite request and a firm voice. 6 months of statements, card activity, cash withdrawals. Page 3, $1,940 drawn across town at a branch I've never set foot in. The timestamp lined up with the afternoon I let Dylan in while I took a shower. I underlined the date and wrote the address in block letters on my pad. By 9:40, I was at the credit bureau kiosk requesting a full file. A card I never opened, valiant one, sat there like a roach on a white tablecloth. Hardware stores, electronics, home goods, a personal loan for $6,000, late and snowballing fees, my name powering someone else's life. I took photos of every page and emailed them to myself and to a new clean address I'd created that morning. Back home, I changed everything. New PIN, new passwords, two-factor on every account. High-risk profile, ask for secondary ID, I told the bank clerk on the phone. At Solar Grid Utilities, I filed an identity theft affidavit. At the post office, I rented a box and moved my mail. A locksmith swapped the cylinder on my front door and took back every spare key but mine. The folding chair stayed. Everything else could burn. Downstairs, my neighbor, Miss Lila Grant, ex-bookkeeper with steady hands, poured me chamomile and listened without blinking. "If you need a witness, I'm your witness," she said. I slid a duplicate folder across her coffee table. Statements, timelines, screenshots, a simple index. Originals went to a safe deposit box. Wednesday, Dylan arrived with a stack of documents spread like a magician's fan. "Sign here, here, and here," he said. "Full power of attorney. Pure practicality." I picked up the pen, held it over the signature line, then set it down. "Give me 3 days." A fracture flashed across his smile. He left the papers on my counter as if weight alone would drag my name onto them. I photographed every page and took them to the law office on 3rd Street. Miguel Ortiz shook my hand, read fast, and spoke plain. "Don't sign. Document everything. Lock accounts. If they push, we discuss a protective order." Friday night, I made chicken and rice, Dylan's childhood favorite. They ate like commuters catching a train. Plates cleared in 12 minutes. He laid the papers next to his fork. "Time's up." "I'm not signing," I said. "This is for your own good," Kelsey hissed. I stacked plates, wiped the table, and left the recorder in the center like a harmless coaster blinking red. The audio backed up to the cloud before their car even left my street. The next week, I closed an old savings account, $18,700 I once called my someday house fund, and opened a fresh one across the river, a bank Dylan has never known. New phone line, new email. No shared Wi-Fi, no shared devices. I called every utility to search my social security number. Gas service popped up at Dylan's address with my name on the bill. 2 more affidavits went out certified mail. That night, I filmed a slow pan of my apartment. What remained? What had been sold? Serial numbers, receipts. Monday morning, I mailed dispute letters to all 3 bureaus, each with exhibits behind neat tabs. Tuesday, 2:10 p.m. Their knock was hard and quick. I slid the chain and opened 3 inches. "We're not talking in the hall," Dylan said. "We're not talking inside either," I said. Kelsey made a face like she'd tasted vinegar. "Ellie, this is dramatic." "My name is Ruth," I said. I lifted my phone so the camera saw their faces and the hallway clock. "Either you return every cent and sign an admission, or I go criminal." "I'm your son," Dylan said. "And the law isn't," I said. They left with steps loud as accusations. 2 days later, Pine Shore confirmed what I already knew. Unauthorized transactions, card compromise presumed. Ortiz turned the pile into a clean petition. $19,840 in verifiable loss, restoration costs, fees, no violins, just facts. We filed at 8:47 a.m. Thursday. A process server carried the envelope to their doorstep. I silenced my phone and set a kettle to sing. Their counterattack went digital. Gym selfies, captions about boundaries, an old photo of me with him at 5, weaponized nostalgia. Comments bloomed by the dozen, all cheerleaders for a story he wrote himself. I typed nothing. I deleted nothing. I let the docket speak my language. A week later, the post stopped like someone cut a wire. Ortiz called. "Opposing counsel wants to discuss settlement." I dictated terms over the hum of my fridge. Full reimbursement, costs, a public statement admitting unauthorized access and fraud, 6 monthly payments on auto debit with automatic escalation to criminal referral on the first miss. Ortiz arched an eyebrow I could hear through the phone. "Bold. I'm done with polite," I said. Before signatures, I finished my sweep. At the notary, I updated my will and named a medical proxy who isn't related to me. At the precinct, I filed a preventive report with incident numbers and attached a transcript of my recordings. At the bank, I added Miss Grant as my trusted contact. At my insurer, I set a PIN phrase no one could guess, and a note. No disclosures without in-person ID. I walked home with the wind at my back and no loose papers in my purse. 9 days later, they signed. $1,940 in restitution, $4,200 in damages, all legal fees on them, 6 equal payments, 15% per day penalty for any late transfer, automatic return to court if they blinked. That afternoon, Dylan posted a square white image with black text. I accessed financial accounts without permission and made transactions I had no right to make. It was wrong, and I accept responsibility. The comments turned like a tide. I closed my laptop and watered the spider plant in the window. Payment 1 hit Friday at 9:01 a.m. Payment 2 the next month. Same minute. On month 3, I placed a deposit on a small place in Gallington near the bay. 2 bedrooms, a porch, a narrow garden path. Dylan's payments and my cleaned money met at the closing table. I signed, pocketed the keys, and moved my folders to a new safe deposit box 2 blocks from the ocean. when the last payment landed, Dylan called. I answered. Mom, can we talk? About what? About us. There is no us, I said. There are terms you kept. You stay there. I stay here. I set the phone down on the counter and watched steam curl from the kettle like a ribbon. I don't do speeches about feelings. I do checklists, locks, pins, affidavits. If someone ever tells me again, it's for your own good, I'll pull a fresh packet from my drawer, set out a pen, and say, sign here. My terms. Part 2. My first week in Gallington. I learned the wind comes off the bay like a blade. I bought rubber mats, a motion light, and 2 cameras that send clips straight to my phone. I planted rosemary along the fence, then labeled a new folder. House. Security. The third night, 1:22 a.m., my phone buzzed. Motion alert. Headlights drifted slow past my porch, backed up, idled. A figure stepped out, hoodie up, walked the fence, tried the gate. The camera caught the wrist, a crescent scar I'd kissed when Dylan fell off a bike at 12. He didn't ring. He didn't knock. He tested the latch, saw the new deadbolt on the side gate, and left. I saved the clip, emailed it to myself, and added a note. No approach. Trespass attempt, 0122. At 7:04 a.m., I called the county sheriff's office and asked a deputy to log a courtesy report. No drama, just a record. 2 days later, a florist van parked across from my porch. Kelsey came out from the passenger side with sunglasses in a paper bag. She didn't see my camera on the porch beam. She left the bag at my door like a stray thought and hurried back. Inside, a framed photo of baby Dylan and a blank card. No handwriting. I sealed the bag and wrote a label. Potential contact. No response. I didn't call them. I called Ortiz. Time for a harassment injunction if we get one more touch, he said. Meanwhile, tighten your grid. So I tightened. Bank alerts for any credit pulls on my SSN. Freeze still on. Locked my wireless router to MAC addresses. USPS informed delivery to see every piece of mail before it touched my box. A neighbor, Hank, retired Coast Guard, agreed to park his truck half in my driveway when he worked nights. Looks like someone's home, he said, thumping the fender. The next knock wasn't Dylan. It was a contractor, clipboard, smile. Ms. Parker, I'm here to check your attic insulation, scheduled by your son. No son schedules work on my roof, I said. Give me your license. He blinked, handed it over. I took photos of the badge, the plate, the estimate he tried to slide into my hand. The phone clip of the exchange went to Ortiz within the hour. He called back, laughing without humor. They're trying the soft entry. Good. We trap soft entries. That evening, I cooked a sheet pan of chicken thighs and onions and walked a container to Miss Lila's address in my contacts. Her name's not in Gallington, but the shape exists here in a woman named Pearl Knox, ex-school secretary with steel in her spine. Pearl tasted the onion, nodded once. Folks who knock with smiles still knock, she said. I'll sit on your porch Friday nights for a spell. Friday, 6:03 p.m., a different car stopped at the curb. Dylan got out alone. No Kelsey, no grin. He stood on the sidewalk like he owned squares of it. Mom, I need to talk. From there is fine, I said. He reached into his pocket, pulled out papers. You rescinded your will, right? You're confused. Kelsey says you're... Stop using other people's mouths, I said. Put the papers down, turn around, and leave. He held them up. Medical power of attorney. You need a family member. I have one, I said. Miguel Ortiz is my proxy. His jaw worked. You're making this hard. You invented hard, I said. Deputy's 2 minutes away. He left. Not fast enough to hide the way his hands shook. The next morning, I did something old me would never do. I printed flyers. Financial literacy, 60 plus, free workshop. Venue, the community center. Teacher, me. I packed sample folders. Statements, disputes, freeze, affidavits. I printed a slide with 5 items. Say no. Document. Duplicate. File. Escalate. 22 people showed up. I taught them how to pull a credit report without paying a scam site, how to freeze, how to talk to a bank clerk without apologizing for calling. A woman with a cane cried once and then stopped, writing like she was chiseling. When it ended, a man hung back. Your boy tall, ring scar on his wrist? He asked carefully. Saw him at the copy shop yesterday making stacks. Looked like forms. Which copy shop? I asked. He told me. I thanked him and went home by the long route. At the copy shop, I bought a ream of paper and asked for a receipt. While the kid behind the counter rang me up, I looked down at the wastebasket under the cutter. On top, a miscut stack of durable power of attorney forms, state seal already printed. Someone had sliced the margins wrong. I snapped a photo of the header and left. That night, Ortiz sent me a template for an emergency injunction. We'll file Monday if he breathes on your fence again, he said, and we'll add attempted document fraud with the forms. Dylan didn't show Monday. Kelsey did, alone this time, at noon, wearing careful makeup and an expression like she'd rehearsed it. She stood at the gate, hands visible. Ruth, she said, I need to talk. I brought coffee. You can watch me open it. Leave the drink on the step, I said. Say your piece. She told it flat. The visa bills were drowning them. Dylan had been reallocating family resources since before their wedding. She'd signed forms she didn't read because he put his hand on hers while she held the pen. He's at a line even I won't cross now, she said. If I give you a statement, do I go to jail? I'm not your judge, I said, but witnesses who tell the truth get to sleep. She swallowed. Then I'll talk. I texted Ortiz. Kelsey wants to cooperate. He replied in seconds. Good. Affidavit. Timeline. Data. I slid a manila envelope through the gate. A blank statement template. A checklist. A prepaid mailer addressed to his office. Fill this without him in the house, I said. Mail it from somewhere he doesn't know. And change your passwords tonight. She nodded. Eyes not watery, just bright like glass under sun. Thank you, she said, and left without looking back. 2 days later, Ortiz called. We have her affidavit, he said. She confirms the card number photo, the utility account application, the copy shop runs, and a planned fake POA he wanted notarized at a UPS store Friday at 3:30. Guess who's going to be at that UPS store? Not me, I said. I'll be at the community center at 4. Friday, 3:28 p.m., Dylan walked into a UPS storefront with a folder and a face he thought was brave. 2 men in plain jackets were already there, talking to the notary. The clerk scanned the ID, compared signatures, looked up, and shook her head. The jacket stepped in, calm and quiet. I know because Ortiz texted me the minute it was done. Served. Documents seized. Notary logged. At 4 o'clock, I stapled handouts for my class. 10 new faces. We practiced saying no like a full sentence. We called 3 banks together on speakerphone and let them hear 22 calm voices request freezes and pins. We clapped when an operator said, "All set, Ms. Alvarez." When I got home at dusk, the bay was a sheet of hammered silver. On my porch sat a single envelope, no stamp, no name, just a heavy silence around it. I brought it inside, put on gloves, and slid it over a tray. Inside were two things: a photo of my old apartment empty as a rib cage, and a note in Dylan's block letters, "You ruined my life." I wrote a reply on the back with a Sharpie and slid it into a new envelope I had no intention of delivering. I rescued mine. Then I logged the incident, filed the note, and poured water for tea. The kettle sang like always, steady and bright, and the motion camera blinked its small green eye toward the road. Part 3. The morning after the envelope, I didn't check the porch first. I checked my bank alerts. 0 anomalies. That was my new ritual. Verify peace before coffee. Outside, the gulls shrieked over the bay like they'd been paid to announce survival. By 9, Ortiz called. "The attempted forgery charge is moving fast. They're questioning him." "Will it stick?" I asked. "Depends how much he talks." But with Kelsey's statement, it's not just fraud anymore. It's premeditated impersonation. "I'm not celebrating," I said. "Just recording." That afternoon, a brown sedan idled near the post office. I recognized the driver before she even stepped out. Kelsey again, alone. Her face looked drawn, her nails bare. "Ruth, I signed the rest," she said. "Everything Miguel sent. I'm out." "Out of the marriage?" "Out of the lie." She handed me a flash drive. "He made backups of your documents, photos, IDs, everything. I found them on his laptop." I took it like a loaded weapon. "Good. You'll sleep tonight." I didn't plug it into my computer. I drove it straight to Ortiz. He copied it to a quarantine drive, scanned it, nodded once. "Insurance policy. He's done." "People like that don't do done," I said. I was right. 3 nights later, my doorbell camera caught a shape moving by the gate, small, hesitant. A delivery boy, barely 20, left a box and ran. Inside, my old bank statements tied with string, each page marked in red ink: liar, thief, betrayer. The handwriting wasn't Dylan's. I scanned the return label. Fake. But the postmark was from his city. I logged it, bagged it, filed it under threats indirect, postal. The next morning, I drove to the police substation myself. A young officer with freckles took my report, flipping through the evidence folder like it was a textbook. "You've done half our job," he said. "I've been doing everyone's job since 1983, I told him. He laughed softly, stapled his form, and handed me a copy. "If he approaches again, call us first, not your lawyer." That weekend, I let myself exhale. I walked the shoreline, bought coffee from a shack where the barista called everyone captain, and watched the tide drag back old shells. For 2 hours, I almost forgot Dylan existed. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail only. "Mom, please. It's not what they're saying. Kelsey set me up. Just talk to me." The voice cracked halfway through. I deleted it, then blocked the number. But part of me replayed it at night. Just once. The cadence wasn't fear, it was strategy. He wanted data. If I'd pick up, if I'd react. I gave him nothing. By Monday, Ortiz confirmed. Dylan's lawyer had proposed a plea. No trial, no jail, if he repaid the restitution already in motion. "He'll still have a record," Ortiz said. "Fraud, identity misuse. Minor time, but permanent." "Permanent suits me fine," I said. Then came the twist I didn't expect.
Kelsey called Ortiz directly to ask if testifying would protect her legally. She wasn't looking for mercy. She wanted closure. He's blaming her for everything, Ortiz told me. She wants to clear her name in open court. Let her, I said. The truth deserves an audience. 2 weeks later, Gallington's courthouse smelled of pine cleaner and cheap coffee. I took the stand for 10 minutes. Short, precise, no trembling hands. Then Kelsey took hers. Her voice didn't waver. She described the copy shop, the fake IDs, the way Dylan practiced my signature on napkins while watching TV. When the gavel finally came down, the judge spoke like someone ending a long play. Restitution confirmed. Community service. Fraud record permanent. Case closed. Outside, I didn't look for him. But through the glass doors, I caught a glimpse anyway. Dylan, thinner, eyes hollow, watching me from the steps. I walked past without slowing. The bay wind hit my face, cold and clean. That evening, Pearl brought over a peach pie and 2 cups. So that's it? She asked. That's the paperwork version of it, I said. The rest takes time. We ate in silence, forks clinking. Later, when I stood on my porch, I thought of all the mothers who'd never see justice, not because they lacked courage, but because they'd been trained to keep forgiving. I wasn't angry anymore, just steady. I checked my phone one last time. Camera feed clear, bank secure, inbox quiet. The world, for once, was silent. Then I opened my notebook, wrote in neat capital letters at the top of a fresh page, End of File 1. Begin again, without fear. Part 4. The text hit at 6:11 a.m. Your mobile number is being transferred. If this wasn't you, reply stop. I typed stop and drove to the carrier store before the doors unlocked. By 8:02, a manager named Tia had set a port-out PIN, locked my account, and printed the attempted request. The signature block said R. M. Parker, in a hand that looked like mine after an earthquake. At 9:30, a woman from the county recorder's office called. Ms. Parker, a quitclaim deed just filed transferring your Gallington property to a Coastal Holdings LLC aim. Did you sign this? No, I said. Keep it warm. I'll be there in 20. The deed was a joke. Misspelled street, wrong middle name, notary stamp from a county 2 hours away. I filed a fraud affidavit, paid for a red flag on my parcel, and watched the clerk stamp void pending investigation. In red that bled through the page like a wound closing. Ortiz picked up on the first ring. They switched playbooks, he said. Title theft and SIM swap. Someone wants your 2-factor codes and your house. Then we tighten the screws, I said. We did. Bank. Hardware token instead of texts. Email. Physical security key. County. Subscription for deed alerts. Title company. Password phrase required for any escrow or payoff request. Pearl stood next to me and chose it. Blue lilac. She grinned. No man in his life ever guessed a lilac. 2 days later, a mobile notary named Brent rang my bell at noon, clipboard under his arm. Package from initials onlys, ma'am, he said, smooth as cream. Place it on the porch table, I said through the door. Cameras on. He slid a thin folder through the gate slot instead. I snapped its photo and pushed it back with a wooden ruler. Now your license. He showed it. I photographed that too. Ortiz texted. Same notary stamp as the fake deed. Don't sign. I'm calling the AG's office. By 4 p.m., the Attorney General's fraud task line had Brent's info. By 5, Tia at the carrier flagged the SIM attempt store number. By 6, Hank parked his truck across my driveway and cleaned a wrench in the twilight like a movie extra with a purpose. That evening, I taught a class called Paper Shields. 28 people. We practiced freezing credit, setting port-out pins, asking county clerks for deed alerts. I handed out a single sheet titled 5 Words That Save Houses and made them say it out loud. I will not sign here. Saturday morning, a white van with Coastal Holdings in vinyl letters rolled slow past my street and turned around. I photographed the plate, called it in, and texted Ortiz. He replied with a pin drop. They've got a UPS box suite downtown. We can bait them. The bait looked like me, careless. We drafted a fake email from a burner. Attach signed deed, wire payoff to... The attachment was a PDF that wasn't a deed at all. It was a notice. This communication is monitored by the state AG. Reply to proceed. They replied in 7 minutes with wiring instructions to a bank in Phoenix. Monday, 2 plainclothes officers and an AG investigator were inside that UPS store before the runner arrived. He wore a golf shirt and carried a manila envelope addressed to Sapo. Coastal Hatsasai. He asked for Suite 214, which was a mailbox. When he turned with the envelope, the plainclothes stepped in. Quiet voices. ID. Cuffs. The notary stamp was in his pocket, still warm from someone's glove box. At noon, Dylan called from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. You think you're clever, he said. You're not the only one who can file papers. I forwarded the audio to Ortiz and the AG. No reply needed. By midweek, the recorder's office sent a letter. Fraudulent deed rejected. Alert remains active. I slid it into house title and took a breath that felt like mine. Then I bought donuts and brought them to the clerk window. For the stamp that saved my roof, I said. The clerk laughed and took the box like a trophy. That night, the bay wind came hard again. I checked cameras. Clear. Then the motion light snapped on. A figure ran across the yard and ripped the license plate off Hank's truck. The camera caught his face full on. Not Dylan. Someone younger, wiry, a star tattoo near the eye. He flipped the bird straight into the lens and sprinted off. I downloaded the clip, exported stills, and emailed them to the deputy with the subject, Face, Plate Theft, 22.14. The deputy called back in 12 minutes. We know that kid, he said. Name's Tyson Cole, errand boy. We'll pick him up. Tell him to hydrate, I said. He's going to be talking a while. Thursday morning, Ortiz called with a smile in his voice. Notary flipped. Says Dylan hired him through a consultant named Pierce. Tyson ran the errands. We're stacking charges. Stack them neat, I said. I like a tidy pile. I took Pearl to lunch to celebrate. She chewed her tuna melt and watched seagulls bully each other on the boardwalk. Men like your boy, she said. They test fences. You put up a wall he can't see over. I put up paperwork, I said. Papers don't flinch. Back home, a letter waited in my box. Handwritten, careful. My name perfect. Inside, a single line. Every empire falls, Ruth. No signature. I held it to the light. No watermark, but the paper had a faint scent. Cologne, sharp and green. I slid it into a sleeve and wrote the date. Thrate, non-specific. That evening at the community center, I taped a fresh poster beside the flyers. Gallington Fraud Watch, weekly, 6 p.m. Hank drew a simple map of the town on a whiteboard. We marked banks, UPS stores, title offices,
the recorder, and the carrier shop. These are the doors they use, I said.
We'll stand in them. Before bed, I set one more safeguard: a recorded statement with my voice reading a list. No POA changes, no deed transfers, no wire authorizations, locked in a safe, a copy with Ortiz, another with the clerk. If anyone tried to argue confusion later, my future self had already spoken clearly. At 11:57 p.m., my phone buzzed with a final message from an unknown number. A photo of my new porch, taken from the sidewalk, night grainy, captioned, "Nice cameras." I added it to the file, turned off the screen, and lay down. The wind worked the house like an old accordion. The cameras watched, the locks held, and on my nightstand, a stack of fresh forms waited with a pen clipped on top. My kind of sword. Part 5. The alert hit before sunrise. Voice ID has been enabled on your bank profile. I don't use Voice ID. I called the fraud line from my landline, read my passphrase, blue lilac, and killed biometrics across every account. Permanent opt-out, I told the clerk. Flag it big. She did. 10 minutes later, a spoofed call came in. A man doing my voice with a warble. "This is Ruth," it said. "I forgot my PIN." I recorded it, saved the number, and emailed Ortiz with the subject, "Deepfake attempt, Year 6, Mile 11. At 9:03, the hospital rang. "Mrs. Parker, your son was in an accident. We need insurance authorization." Old tactic, new polish. "Give me the patient ID," I said. They couldn't. I hung up, called the hospital on the number from the back of my card. No patient by that name. I added a laminated sheet by my phone. No authorizations by inbound calls. I call you. That afternoon, 2 officers appeared at my gate for a welfare check. Anonymous tip claimed an elderly woman was confused and screaming. I was on the porch with tea. "I'm the elderly woman," I said. I handed over my pre-filed premises note from dispatch, gate code, emergency contact, the instruction. Call before entry. We chatted on camera. They logged the false report as spoofed 911 and left. I posted a small sign by the bell. "Property monitored. Call dispatch. File num G1472 before entry." The next day, my mailbox held a letter from the IRS that I didn't request. "We received your address change." I drove to the tax office with my folder and filed Form 14039, Identity Theft Affidavit, and added an IP pin to my file. "No return without this 6-digit code," the clerk said. I wrote it 3 places and didn't say it aloud even to myself. Gallington Fraud Watch had outgrown a folding table. We moved into Room B at the community center, whiteboard permanently stained with arrows. I split the group into 4 squads. Phones, paper, property, ports. Phones traced spoof numbers with a VoIP honeypot Hank built from spare gear. Paper reviewed fake notices. Property watched deeds. Ports lived at the carrier shop and taught people how to set transfer pins. Pearl kept attendance and brought oatmeal cookies like paychecks. Our honeypot rang at 2:47 p.m., a slick voice selling estate consolidation services. He wanted a scan of a deed and a signature sample. I booked a meeting for the following day at a coffee shop, under the name Eleanor. The AG's investigator slid into the booth behind mine. The man who arrived wore boat shoes and a smile. He called himself Pierce. "Eleanor," he said, "title is a maze. I can walk you through." "Walk me," I said, pushing a folder across. Inside was a printed notice of AG monitoring with a fake deed peeking behind it like bait. He flipped, paused on the warning, and kept talking. That told me everything.
He'd seen the word Attorney General and decided to bluff the next 2 minutes out of pride. When the investigators stood, the smile died like a candle. They left without cuffs. Papers first, cuffs later. I paid for my coffee and added, Pierce, ID confirmed, to our board. Dylan tried the back door through church.
A woman named Brenda, new volunteer, stopped me after service. Do you have a living will, Ruth? I can notarize for free. Nice voice, pearl earrings. I asked for her commission card. She fumbled. I left it at home, she said. We can do it after potluck. Bring it next week, I said, smiling like a cat behind lace. She didn't come back. On Tuesday, the carrier store called. Tia again. We caught a port request with a forged power of attorney, she said. Different notary. Same pattern. Turn it over, I said. She did. Wednesday, the postmaster asked me to stop by. He had an armful of held mail retagged to a Phantom Unit B at my address. Someone had filed an internal change order. We reversed it on the terminal while he showed me the form. Signature, a shaky version of mine. Want a box lock? He asked. I bought 1 and 2 more for Pearl and Hank. Ortiz rang just after lunch. We have a hearing on the injunction, he said. Kelsey's affidavit plus the deep fake recording and title attempt will do it. You want a permanent order? Yes, I said. And I want the carve-outs gone. No excuses, no drive-bys. He filed. The judge signed. Service went out the same day. At 5:14 p.m., a brand new number texted me a photo of a gun on a kitchen table with the caption, "Talk or else." The metadata said the picture was 8 years old, scraped from a dorm account. I forwarded it to the deputy. He called back in 7 minutes. Felony threat, even if fake, he said. We'll knock on doors. That night I tightened one more screw, removed my name from data brokers, opt-outs for Spokeo, white pages, the whole list. The phone rang less by morning. Friday's class was packed. I wrote a single sentence at the top of the board. Criminals love silence. We dialed loved ones on speaker and taught them to say no without a paragraph attached. We filed 3 freezes for grandchildren. We taught a man to call his bank and ask for a hardware token, then cheered like he'd crossed a finish line when the clerk said, "It ships tomorrow." Sunday, the gulls were quiet. I swept the porch, watered the rosemary, and found a neatly folded paper under the mat, a printout of my workshop flyer with "Fraud Witch" scrawled across it. I slid it into a plastic sleeve, dated it, and put it behind "Threats, low." Monday morning, Ortiz called with the news that made everything click. Pierce sang, he said. He's tied to a contractor in Dylan's office. Procurement. They laundered fees through a shell and swapped IDs in and out of vendor files. Your deed attempt was the proof we needed to thread their cases together. So it's a ring, I said. It's a ring, he said. Dylan was the family doorway. Pierce opened the others. At noon, the AG's office put out a press release. They didn't use my name, just a Gollington resident, who documented theft attempts and cooperated with officials. The ring had 5 arrests and 3 more ongoing. Kelsey sent Ortiz a single line to pass to me. Thank you for choosing court over kitchen fights. I wrote back through him. Thank you for telling the truth while it mattered. Dylan finally called that night from a number blocked by my phone, routed straight to voicemail. You win, he said. Happy? I didn't keep it. I deleted it before the second word settled. The bay wind came clean. The cameras watched nothing do nothing. I printed a new sheet for the binder, slid it under a clear cover, and clipped a pen to it. Gallington checklist, phase 2. Voice ID, off, opt-out filed. IRS IP pin, set. Deed alerts, active. Data brokers, OPT out. Carrier, port pin, plus account note. Injunction, served, permanent. Community watch, weekly, room B. Honeypot, live. I don't do victory laps. I do maintenance. Paper stacked square. Batteries full. Neighbors trained. If someone asks for my signature, I show them the only one that matters on a page that says, no. Part 6. The green slip came first. Certified mail. From a firm with a Skyline logo. Inside, Dylan's civil suit for defamation and intentional infliction. I read it once, twice, then called Ortiz. Anti-slap, he said. We file, we win, he pays. Calendar it, I said. I'll bring cookies. Court moved fast when money waste was obvious. The judge skimmed Dylan's brief, then mine, then asked one question. Is any statement at issue tied to a public filing or law enforcement record? Yes, Your Honor, Ortiz said, tapping the exhibits. Indictments, deed alerts, the UPS notary report. Motion granted, the judge said. Fees to respondent. The gavel sounded like a screen door shutting. I walked out lighter by a worry and heavier by an award he couldn't afford. That night, I set a new trap I'd been waiting to use. A UV dye letter pack. If anyone tampered with my mailbox again, their palms would glow for a week under blue light. Hank installed a small lamp near the porch just for the show. Wednesday, Gallington Fraud Watch filled room B wall to wall. We were drilling scam rebuttals under 60 seconds when the door opened and Dylan stepped in. No Kelsey, no lawyer, a fresh haircut, and a stare that wanted to swallow the room. You, he said, finger out like a bayonet. You turned our family into a circus. Pearl rose without fuss and pointed to the placard by the door. No trespass. Court order. 4927. I didn't stand. I lifted my phone so its screen faced him, recording live, and spoke like I was reading a recipe. This is a violation, Dylan. You will leave now. He smirked, took 3 steps, and found 2 deputies in the hallway who'd been invited for tonight's community liaison segment. He smiled for them, too. The smile didn't travel to his eyes. They walked him out, calm, paper in hand. Protocol tastes like sawdust when you want a scene. I watched him chew it. At dawn, my mailbox tripped the die. The lid hung open like a tongue. I rolled the UV lamp on, and the porch glowed with a comet trail of handprints heading south. The deputy followed fingerprints down the block to a Civic with a star-eyed passenger. Tyson again. His hands shone club blue. He ran. Hank's drone tracked him to a car wash. They pulled him out of the foam like a fish from suds. Charge, federal mail tampering. He cried. Ink doesn't. By noon, Ortiz texted a new angle. Corporate audit at Dylan's firm. Procurement is bleeding. Guess who signed vendor entries? Who opened the vein? I asked. Kelsey. She turned over emails. Internal counsel wants our docket. Give them the docket, I said, and keep a copy on a cloud that doesn't have a name. That evening, Brenda, the church volunteer with missing notary credentials, reappeared at our meeting in a different dress, same pearls. She listened, took a cookie, and left early. Pearl watched her go. Moth to porch light, she said. I followed Brenda, not on foot, but with paperwork, state notary register, commission numbers, lapsed licenses. 30 minutes later, I had her real surname and 3 complaints filed in counties north. I packaged it for the AG with a note. Same network, new face. Friday brought the corporate domino. Dylan's company placed him on leave pending investigation. His email died. His access card stopped beeping. I knew because he called at 11:03 a.m. from a public phone. Those still exist in Gallington, 2 of them by the bus depot. He left a message my voicemail transcribed with polite brutality. "You did this." I didn't reply. I wrote the time on a sticky note and filed it under front. Workplace consequences. Midnight, my geofence pinged. Someone stepped over the side hedge, not the gate. The camera caught only a shoulder and a sleeve. Then a hiss. The old gas line by my porch meter. A wrench clinked. I hit 911 and said one word: tampering. Hank was already outside. He'd heard metal talk to metal. The cruiser arrived in under 3 minutes. The figure ripped away, caught a thorn, left a thread. The gas company sealed the line and replaced the box. The deputy pocketed the fabric for a lab that still knows cotton from lies. Acceleration pattern, the tech said, tapping the meter housing. This wasn't curiosity. Nothing about him is, I said. Saturday morning, I signed a single page at the precinct, an addendum to the injunction. No approach within 300 yards of any utility or mailbox in my name. The judge wrote, granted in ink like a nail. We still held class. Fear is a poor teacher. Habit is better. We reviewed freezing deceased relatives' credit. So grief couldn't be mined. We taught a widow how to talk to her bank's estate department without surrendering a social security number on a live line. We laughed once even when Hank played back a robocall and Pearl answered it like a game show host. "Wrong house, darling," she said, and the room exhaled. On Sunday, the paper ran a headline about the procurement ring. No names, just arrests in coastal fraud. And a quote from the AG thanking a vigilant local network. Pearl clipped it and taped it on our board. "You start a fire, you better bring a hose," she said. "I brought a file cabinet," I said. That night the bay softened. I set the UV light on the lowest shelf and checked the porch cam one last time. Quiet. In the kitchen, I slid a fresh page into the front of my binder. Post-slap, post-ring protocol. Court fees. Collect via lien if unpaid. Utility perimeter. Sensors installed. Add second camera on meter. USPS. Die pack rearmed. Box lock replaced monthly. Corporate. Send docket copy to auditor plus offsite backup. Church vector. Notify pastor with credential check guide. Meeting. Recruit 2 more deputies for Q&A. I clicked the pen closed and placed it on top. I don't chase ghosts. I catalog them. Tomorrow, if another paper snake slithers through a door it doesn't own, I'll pin it in a sleeve and label it true. Part 7. The summons for the ring's indictment came with a schedule tight as a drum. Arraignments, Tuesday, plea talks Thursday, restitution hearing the week after. I marked each date in black, not red. Red is for fires. Monday, the sheriff's office served Dylan the permanent order addendum. No utilities, no mailbox, 300 yards. He violated it that evening by sending a courier to tape a manila envelope to my gas meter. The camera caught the courier's face and the job receipt with a QR code. Deputies traced the order to a prepaid card Dylan bought at a pharmacy the hour prior. Charge, indirect violation. He learned the rule the hard way. Outsourcing still counts. At the restitution hearing, Ortiz spoke 4 clean sentences. The judge signed 2 orders.
First, conversion of my anti-slap fee award into a lien on Dylan's vehicle. Second, attachment on his brokerage account for the last piece of court costs. The clerk stamped them. The bailiff handed copies. Paper beats bravado. I didn't go watch the tow. Hank did. He texted me a photo of the sedan hooked to a winch, like a fish on a bright cord. "One less engine circling your block," he wrote. I slid the image into workplace, consequences, and moved on. The ring pled. Pierce and the notary took deals. Tyson flipped for youth. Dylan stood in the same line and signed his name in a box that would follow him forever. Guilty. Identity misuse, fraud conspiracy. Probation, more restitution, community service. The clerk read terms like a grocery list. He didn't look back. I kept building. We put fraud watch on a proper schedule. Tuesdays for phones, Thursdays for paper, Saturdays for property. The library gave us a locked cabinet. The bank donated hardware tokens for anyone over 65. Pearl printed lanyards.
Hank set up a tiny lab, UV lamp, magnifier, a scanner that turns bad mail into evidence with one button. 2 new tactics showed up and died quick. One was reverse mortgage counseling. 3 men in polo shirts, glossy pamphlets, and a fake HUD seal. Pearl asked for their counselor IDs. They had smiles instead of numbers. We photographed plates, filed a complaint, and watched them leave town fast. The other was a hospice scam call claiming my advance directive needed a wet signature today. I answered with my premises note file number and the sentence, "No inbounds. I call you." The line went dead. I still taught. One session was, after a death, how to lock down a loved one's accounts before grief turns into invoices. Another covered caregiver backgrounds. With county databases and the way to ask for references without sounding apologetic. We practiced out loud. For our safety, I need your license and your bond number. No one flinched by the end. The last loose thread pulled itself. A clerk from the recorder's office called. "Ms. Parker, you put donuts on our counter the day we voided your deed. Thought you'd want to know. The AG issued a statewide alert on Coastal Holdings shells. Your case is the example in the training slideshow." I baked a new batch and brought it over. "For the slides," I said. The room laughed like the punchline we'd earned. 2 weeks later, my community center room had standing room only. The mayor stopped by, said 3 ceremonial lines, then sat and filled out a freeze request like a man who finally understood locks. We put a corkboard at the entrance titled, "We closed these doors," and pinned every scam we'd shut with dates and methods. New folks read it like a menu. Dylan's last move tried to use the lane he'd never earned. Family. A cousin I hadn't seen in 20 years rang the bell with a pie and a message. He wants an apology. I pointed at the placard with the order number and the little sentence that had saved my porch 100 times. "Court order's still court order," I said. The cousin left with the pie. Boundaries taste fine cold. The final administrative task came on a Wednesday. A restitution ledger showing paid in full. I copied it twice, put one in court, closure, one in house, title, then locked the cabinet and left for the bay. I didn't deliver speeches to the water. I checked my phone, quiet, and watched the tide carry glass back as sand. On the way home, I stopped at the hardware store and bought 3 things: a new deadbolt, a brass mail slot with a tamper plate, and a small engraved plaque. Hank installed the bolt. Pearl held the ladder.
and I screwed the plaque into the porch beam myself. It read, Gallington Fraud Clinic, Mon and 2, 4 to 6. By month's end, our clinic had a simple intake. Copy IDs, front and back, draw a timeline on one sheet, list every account, label every folder. People left with binders and straight backs. The sheriff's liaison sat in the corner and showed us how to log enough to make a case without writing novels. We learned how to breathe during hold music. We learned to hang up clean. We learned to say, no, the way a door says it, without explanation. News travels. A woman from 2 towns over arrived with a stack of letters and a look like she hadn't slept. We built her a file in an hour. She hugged Pearl. She shook Hank's hand. She left with our checklist and a token key on a ribbon. As she reached the door, she turned. "How did you start this?" she asked me. I tapped the binder. "A list," I said, "and a lock." On a cool Friday, the court mailed me a 2-line note. Violation review concluded. Permanent order stands. I taped it inside the cabinet door and went to the garden. The rosemary had gone from sprigs to a hedge. I clipped a handful with a kitchen scissor, brought it in, and tied it with twine to the spine of my binder like a flag. The camera blinked its little green eye. The bay wind climbed the porch and slid back down, empty-handed. And on my desk sat a final sheet, clean and sharp, ready for the next person who needed it. Start here. Pull reports, freeze all 3, port out PIN, carrier note, deed alert, recorder contact, IRS IP PIN, SSA My Account, bank token, speak to fraud desk, document, duplicate, backup, if they push, file, not argue. I clicked the pen, wrote the date, and closed the cover. No victory lap, just the sound of a bolt meeting a strike plate, exactly where it belongs. Part 8, final. The state AG invited me to the Capitol on a Tuesday. Not a ceremony, training. Bring your binder, the email said. I brought 2 and a thumb drive named Locksmith. I started the session the only way I know. Checklist first, story second. Deputies, clerks, carriers, bank fraud leads, all in one room. We ran a drill. Fake deed, spoofed call, SIM swap, hospice scam, reverse mortgage pitch. 15 minutes in, the room moved like a pit crew. A colonel from state police slapped my shoulder on the way out. "You made it boring," he said. "That's the win." Back in Gallington, the clinic hit capacity and then some. The library gave us the old auditorium. The bank sent hardware tokens in bulk. The county hosted a page with every link we use. We printed a 1-page map of doors, criminals push, and stuck it to the wall. Mailbox, phone, carrier, recorder, bank, hospital, church, ups. You shut those, you sleep. Dylan tried one last time. Of course he did. A stranger in a courier shirt rang Pearl's bell asking for Ms. Parker's signature. Wrong porch on purpose. Our geofence covers both. Hank met him on the step with a clipboard and a smile that meant business. "Sign my log," he said, and the courier took off. The plate hit our camera, the number hit the deputy's terminal, and by supper the man was identified. A cousin of Pierce, recruited on an app that pays cash for deliveries. Charge: attempt to violate a protective order by proxy. Outsourcing still counts. The ring collapsed for good in August. Pierce took a federal plea. The notary lost her stamp. Tyson, full of apologies, swept the county warehouse all fall. Dylan moved 2 towns away and switched to a job with no access to money or files. The injunction followed like a shadow.
If he ever came within 300 yards of my porch or a utility meter, it would sing in a courtroom the next morning. I didn't track him. I tracked the clinic. We added, Guardianship 101. How to appoint the right person before you need one. We wrote a do not sign card you keep in a wallet behind your license. We got a small grant and bought 3 laptops that live in a locked cabinet with our forms. Pearl runs intake like an air traffic controller. Hank turned the honeypot into a dashboard that flags waves of scams by area code. When a surge hits, we print flyers the same day and push them through every door on our map. On a cool Friday, the mayor handed me a small plaque for service. I didn't give a speech. I held it up and then slid it onto the clinic shelf next to the UV lamp and the box of tamper seals. Tools belong with tools. That night, I walked the path behind my house to the bay. The tide was low enough to show the ribs of old pilings. My phone buzzed. Deed alert. Just testing from the recorder's office. They ping the line monthly now. I sent back a thumbs up and kept walking. Far out, a shrimp boat drifted past the point with its deck lights like a floating kitchen. I stood there until the cold reached my wrists, then went home to lock up. 2 weeks later, a woman named Nora showed up with a cardboard archive of her father's papers and 48 hours to stop a mess. We cleared a table, flipped the lid, divided piles. She dialed while I dictated. Freeze, PIN, deed alert, IRS IP PIN, utility fraud unit, bank token. By closing time, the line was quiet, and so was her face. She hugged me once and left with a binder and a rosemary sprig Pearl tucked under the strap. We kept the rhythm, one porch at a time. A month after that, the AG's office sent a notice. My red flag deed case would be in their statewide training for new clerks. They asked for a quote. I wrote exactly 8 words. Make fraud dull. Make documentation louder than drama. They used it as a slide title. I smiled and went back to copying IDs. On the clinic door now hangs our final sheet, laminated and simple. Start here. Pull credit, all 3, and freeze. Carrier. Set port, PIN plus account note. Recorder, deed alert, plus red flag on parcel. IRS, ID theft, affidavit, plus IP PIN. Bank, hardware token, opt out of voice ID, USPS, lock, plus informed delivery. Die pack ready, document, duplicate, offsite backup. If pressured, don't argue. File. No flourish, no music, just steps. The house is quiet most evenings. The cameras blink, the locks bite. The binder lives on its shelf with a pen clipped to the cover. Sometimes Miss Lila, my first witness with chamomile hands, calls from the old neighborhood. We talk about bread prices and weather. Then she reminds me to water the rosemary. I do, and it spreads like a small hedge against nonsense. You want an ending? Here it is, plain and useful. My son thought control was a signature. He was wrong. Control is a system you can teach a stranger in an hour at a folding table. It's a checklist someone can use with shaking hands. It's neighbors who know which door to stand in and which number to dial. I don't carry grudges. I carry forms. If a fresh scheme ever slinks down my street, it'll meet paper in light, copies in triplicate, timestamps, and a clerk who already knows my case number by heart. The wind off the bay will keep cutting clean, and my front door will answer every knock the same way a good lock does, with a clear, satisfying click.